Welcome to Whisper and Learn channel. In today's video, we'll dive into another engaging story to help you improve your English listening skills while enjoying a relaxing and stress-free experience. Each story is crafted to teach practical vocabulary, enhance your comprehension, and provide meaningful life lessons. So grab your headphones, relax, and let's begin.
The bustling streets of Chicago were a maze of opportunity and challenge for Sophie and Ben. Moving to the city had always been her dream. She imagined herself strolling along Lake Michigan, exploring the vibrant neighborhoods, and soaking up the cultural diversity that the city had to offer. But the reality of finding a place to live was quickly tarnishing her excitement. Sophie had toured countless apartments, only to find that they were either exorbitantly priced or barely livable. The affordable ones were too far from her job at a marketing firm downtown, and the ones closer to work seemed to vanish from the market before she could even make a call. On her fourth week of searching, Sophie sat in her favorite coffee shop, staring at her laptop with a mix of frustration and fatigue. The barista, noticing her stress, brought over her usual chai latte with an encouraging smile. "Don't give up," he said. Sophie nodded, though her spirits felt drained. As she scrolled through yet another list of disheartening options, her eyes fell on a handwritten ad pinned to the bulletin board near the entrance. Roommate wanted. Bright 2-bedroom in Lincoln Park. Rent split evenly. Available immediately. Call Ben. It was simple and straightforward, almost too good to be true. But Sophie hesitated. Moving in with a stranger, especially a male one, felt risky. She'd always envisioned having a female roommate, someone she could bond with over late-night chats or trips to the farmer's market. What if this Ben turned out to be a slob? Or worse, what if he was creepy? Yet the thought of extending her exhausting search filled her with dread. Her lease was ending in 2 weeks, and she was running out of options. Sophie sipped her chai, weighing her choices. The coffee shop buzzed around her. The hum of conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine, the faint strains of jazz playing in the background. Maybe this was a sign to take a chance. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number. The voice on the other end was warm and friendly, with a hint of surprise that someone had responded to his ad so quickly. They arranged for Sophie to see the apartment the next day. Ben Carter greeted her at the door with an easygoing smile. He was in his early 30s, his wavy brown hair slightly tousled, and he radiated a laid-back charm that put Sophie at ease almost immediately. "Hi, you must be Sophie," he said, stepping aside to let her in. The apartment was a pleasant surprise. The living room was spacious, filled with natural light from large windows framed by cheerful yellow curtains. A mix of modern furniture and quirky vintage finds gave the space character. A guitar leaned against the wall, and the scent of fresh coffee lingered in the air. "It's not a palace," Ben said, leading her through the kitchen and into the bedrooms, "but it's got character, and it's pretty quiet for the city." Sophie peeked into the second bedroom, which was cozy but clean, with white walls ready for her personal touch. Relief washed over her. After so many disappointments, this place felt like a haven. "It's perfect," she said, turning to Ben. "I mean, if you're okay with me as a roommate." Ben laughed. "You seem pretty normal, and I promise I'm not a serial killer." Sophie blinked, caught off guard by his humor, and then burst out laughing. "Good to know. I'll move in next week." That night, Sophie lay in bed, her decision made, but her nerves lingering. Living with a male roommate wasn't ideal, and her friends had voiced their concerns when she told them about the arrangement. "What if he's messy?" one asked. "What if he's weird?" another chimed in. But Sophie had felt something genuine in Ben's demeanor. He didn't seem like someone who'd cross boundaries or make her feel uncomfortable. If anything, his easygoing nature might balance out her own cautious tendencies. Besides, she told herself this was temporary, just until she could save enough to afford her own place. For now, it was a solution, and she was determined to make it work. Within a week, Sophie had moved in, her boxes stacked neatly in the corner of her new room. She spent her first evening unpacking, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. Ben knocked on her door, holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa. "Welcome to the apartment," he said with a grin. As they sat in the living room, chatting about their favorite Chicago spots and trading stories about past roommates, Sophie began to relax. Maybe this arrangement wouldn't be so bad after all. Living with Ben was an adjustment. Sophie quickly discovered his quirks. He played the guitar late into the night, hummed constantly while making coffee, and was inexplicably terrible at folding laundry. Once, she found him trying to balance a basket of wrinkled clothes on one knee while half-heartedly smoothing a shirt with his hand. "Ben," she said, leaning against the doorframe, "you do realize that's not how you fold clothes, right?" He glanced up, grinning sheepishly. "I call it the freestyle method." Sophie rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a laugh. "Remind me never to ask you to fold anything for me." Despite his quirks, Ben had a knack for making their home feel inviting. He always had music playing in the background, classic rock, indie folk, or jazz, and often invited Sophie to join him for impromptu jam sessions in the living room. She'd watch as he strummed his guitar, his foot tapping in time with the beat, and found herself unexpectedly charmed by his passion for music. "You're really not a fan of silence, are you?" Sophie teased one morning as Ben hummed his way through breakfast prep, flipping pancakes with a theatrical flourish. "What can I say? Silence is overrated," he shot back with a grin. Their differences balanced each other out in surprising ways. Sophie, meticulous and organized, brought structure to their shared space, while Ben's easygoing demeanor reminded her to loosen up and enjoy the moment. Over time, they developed an unspoken rhythm. Ben introduced Sophie to his favorite jazz bars, where the smoky ambiance and soulful melodies captivated her. In return, Sophie shared her love of cooking, filling the apartment with the comforting aroma of her family's Vietnamese recipes. One evening, after Sophie made pho for dinner, Ben leaned back in his chair, a blissful expression on his face. "You're never allowed to move out," he declared. "This is amazing." Sophie laughed, shaking her head. "We'll see. You're still on probation." "Probation?" Ben repeated, feigning outrage. "I've been nothing but an exemplary roommate." "Exemplary?" Sophie raised an eyebrow. "You left 3 mugs on the coffee table yesterday." "Details," Ben said, waving her off. "Pho forgives all sins." As they laughed together, Sophie felt a warmth she hadn't expected, a sense of ease and companionship that made their unconventional arrangement feel, somehow, just right. Their friendship deepened with time. Ben supported Sophie through her stressful new job at a marketing firm, offering her advice and a listening ear. Sophie, in turn, became Ben's biggest cheerleader as he worked on a music composition project he'd been dreaming of for years. She often found him hunched over his laptop, headphones on, lost in his world of melodies and chords. Occasionally, he'd play her snippets, seeking her feedback. "Too slow?" he asked one night, strumming a progression on his guitar. Sophie shook her head, her voice soft. "No, it's beautiful, like it's telling a story." Ben smiled, the kind that reached his eyes. "Thanks, Sophie, that means a lot." One rainy Saturday, Ben invited Sophie to an open mic night at a cozy local cafe where he was performing. The cafe was warm and inviting, its walls lined with bookshelves and twinkling fairy lights. Sophie found a seat near the front, her heart unexpectedly fluttering as Ben took the stage with his guitar. Watching him play and sing with such passion stirred something in her she hadn't felt before. His voice was rich and soulful, his lyrics raw and heartfelt. As the crowd erupted into applause, Ben caught her eye, his smile filled with a warmth that made her heart race. "You were incredible," Sophie said after the performance, her voice sincere. "You think?" Ben asked, looking genuinely unsure. "I know," she said firmly, her cheeks flushing as he held her gaze. Their walk home was quiet at first, the rain a soft patter on the pavement. Sophie hesitated before speaking. "Ben, why didn't you tell me you were that talented?" Ben laughed softly. "It's just something I do. I didn't think it mattered that much." "It matters," Sophie said, her voice firm. "What you do matters." He glanced at her, his expression unwritable. "Thanks, Sophie." That night, as Sophie lay in bed, her thoughts wouldn't settle. The way Ben looked on stage, the way he smiled at her afterward, it felt like something was shifting between them. But what did it mean? And was she ready to find out? Their connection grew in subtle but undeniable ways. Ben started leaving her notes on the kitchen counter. "Don't forget your umbrella today." Or, "Good luck with the presentation." Sophie found herself texting Ben funny memes or sharing her favorite songs with him, knowing he'd appreciate them. Each gesture, though small, felt like another thread weaving their lives together. One chilly evening, Ben suggested they go ice skating at the city's outdoor rink. Sophie hesitated. She hadn't skated in years and wasn't eager to embarrass herself in front of him. But Ben's encouragement was hard to resist. "Come on," he said, offering her his hand. "What's the worst that can happen? Besides, I'll catch you if you fall." Reluctantly, Sophie laced up her skates and stepped onto the ice. As expected, her first few movements were shaky, and she clung to the railing for balance. Ben skated backward in front of her, his grin as wide as the rink itself. "You've got this," he said, extending a hand. With a deep breath, Sophie let go of the railing and took his hand. They moved slowly at first, Sophie wobbling with each step, but Ben's steady grip kept her upright. Their laughter filled the cold air as they wobbled and stumbled together, their hands brushing as he helped steady her. "You're not half bad," Ben teased, his breath visible in the cold air. "And you're not as graceful as you think," Sophie shot back, grinning. Their laughter echoed across the rink, and for a moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. As they circled the rink, Sophie began to relax, even enjoying herself. But the tranquility was short-lived. Trying to avoid a group of children darting across the ice, Sophie lost her balance and fell, pulling Ben down with her. They landed in a heap, Sophie laughing uncontrollably, while Ben groaned dramatically. "I thought you said you'd catch me," Sophie teased, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. "I didn't think you'd take me down with you," Ben retorted, his tone mock indignant. Despite the fall, neither of them made an effort to get up immediately. Instead, they lay there, their laughter subsiding into comfortable silence as the world moved around them. Ben turned to Sophie, his expression soft. "You're full of surprises, you know that?" Sophie raised an eyebrow, a playful smile tug. The turning point came on a warm spring evening. Sophie had spent weeks tirelessly organizing a charity gala for her firm. The event was a culmination of late nights, stressful meetings, and countless last-minute changes. She had barely slept the night before, her nerves frayed as she rehearsed her speech and double-checked every detail. When the evening finally arrived, Sophie stood near the entrance of the grand ballroom, greeting guests and silently praying everything would go smoothly. As she turned to adjust the seating chart, her breath caught. Ben was walking toward her, dressed sharply in a tailored navy suit that seemed to amplify his easy charm. He looked confident, but there was a hint of nervousness in his expression as their eyes met. "What are you doing here?" Sophie asked, her voice a mix of surprise and delight. "Supporting you," Ben said simply, his tone warm. "I wouldn't miss it." For a moment, Sophie was at a loss for words. The gesture was unexpected, and the sight of him amidst the glittering crowd made her heart flutter. "Thank you," she finally managed, her voice softer than she intended. Throughout the evening, Sophie caught glimpses of Ben. He blended seamlessly with the guests, chatting with her colleagues, and even winning over her notoriously difficult boss. When she took the stage to deliver her speech, her eyes found Ben in the crowd. His encouraging smile steadied her nerves, giving her the confidence to speak from her heart. After the event, as they walked home through the quiet, tree-lined streets, Sophie felt a lump forming in her throat. The city's usual hustle seemed muted, the warm night air carrying a sense of intimacy. "You didn't have to come," she said softly, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "I wanted to," Ben replied, his voice steady. "You mean a lot to me, Sophie." She stopped walking, turning to face him. The streetlights cast a gentle glow on his face, and for a moment the world around them seemed to pause. "Ben, what are we doing?" He hesitated, his brow furrowing slightly before a smile broke through. "I don't know, but I know I don't want to lose this." Sophie nodded, her heart pounding. "Me neither." They didn't rush into defining their relationship. Instead, they let things unfold naturally, savoring the moments that brought them closer. Mornings often began with coffee on the balcony, the city waking up around them as they shared quiet conversations. On weekends, they took spontaneous road trips, exploring small towns and hidden trails, their laughter filling the car as they sang along to Ben's favorite playlist. Late at night, they'd sit on the couch with a bottle of wine, talking about everything from their childhood dreams to their deepest fears. Sophie learned about Ben's struggles with self-doubt as a musician, and Ben discovered Sophie's insecurities about proving herself in her demanding career. Their vulnerability created a bond that felt unshakable. One summer evening, as they sat on the rooftop of their building, watching the city skyline, the air was filled with the faint hum of distant traffic and the occasional chirp of crickets. Sophie leaned back against the railing, her gaze fixed on the twinkling lights that stretched endlessly before them. "Do you ever think about how random this all was?" Ben asked, breaking the comfortable silence. "You mean how I ended up moving in here?" Sophie replied, her lips curving into a small smile. "Yeah," Ben said, his voice thoughtful. "If you'd chosen a different listing, or if I'd rented to someone else, we never would have met." Sophie turned to him, her eyes soft. "Sometimes the best things in life are the ones you don't plan for." Ben's gaze lingered on her for a moment before he leaned closer, pressing a gentle kiss to the top of her head. "Here's to more unexpected things," he said, his voice a soft promise. As the city lights sparkled around them, Sophie felt a deep sense of gratitude. What began as a practical arrangement had transformed into something extraordinary. Their journey from strangers to roommates to soulmates taught her that love has a way of finding you when you least expect it, and that sometimes taking a chance on the unknown leads to the most beautiful rewards.
Thank you for listening to this story on Whisper and Learn channel. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable today. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that make learning English fun and effective. Let us know in the comments what you think of this story or what topics you'd like to hear next. See you in the next video. Happy learning!